You're going to want to check your bookshelf for this one. Today I'm reviewing the complete book for making basic patterns for the individual figure by Grace Auditore. And I just want to apologize. This book is out of print and I couldn't find any on Amazon to give a link for you to purchase it. But I was talking to my class, my bodice fitting class, about this, and someone made the really good suggestion of checking your local library system to see if you can, loan it from the library. You may also want to check eBay because eBay is a good source for finding out of print books. Now, the reason why I'm using another out of print book in my series for bodice drafting is because this is the best torso draft I could find. So normally, or more commonly, the bodice draft goes from the shoulders to the waist. And then you take your hip block and you attach it basically to the bottom of the waist to create a torso. This book has a torso draft in it, and I was really intrigued by it. So I just want to point out here that it also includes fitting information while you're drafting, and then there are tips for fitting the muslin after you sew it together to test fit it. And I was really impressed with a lot of the steps and things in this book. So I just want to start out by showing you the basic setup for the draft is very similar to the drafts I've shared where the entire front and back is created from one rectangle that is your full bust measurement plus some ease. Now, the interesting thing about this draft is after you get that rectangle, there's a little bit of angling in for the center front and back edges, which I found very interesting because you need that angle, especially on the center back, if you want to align it with a skirt or hip block, because it accounts for the small of your back and the angle of your back when you're attaching it to a hip block. So you can see this red line after you create the straight center back, you actually bring that in on a slight angle. So I thought that was interesting. The other thing I like about this drafting method is each line is defined by point it starts and the point it ends. So for example, when you draw your bust span, you start at A, which is in the upper left-hand corner, and then you draw your full, half of your full bust plus ease, and you come up with this point 2. So this line is A to 2. So it's not just point A and then point 2, it's line A2. And the reason why that's a little bit different is because in the instructions, when it wants you to measure along the line, it will say measure A2 line, whatever it is. So for example, A to 11 was my upper back width. So they wanted you to measure out on the A to 2 line the upper back. And then when I did the upper front, or high chest measurement, they have you measure from the 2 to A line. So they start with the point you're measuring out from when they describe the line to you. And I found that very easy to follow along with. The other thing is, as you're working along, for some of the key areas, for example, the shape of your upper back is taken into consideration during this draft. So if you had a flat upper back or wide shoulders, then the recommendation was to change the width of the shoulder dart in the back. And if you've been following along with me, you know that I'm embracing that shoulder dart in the back because I really think it helps with a lot of fitting issues. So this draft features a back shoulder dart, back waist darts. And then in the front, there is a front shoulder dart, a bust dart, and a waist dart. And I think, especially for large busted women, being able to divide that full bust shape onto your shoulder and your bust really helps create a nicer shape for the cup, at least when you're getting started. So I'm really excited to test this because, as you can see here, this is my front draft. All the shapes were so easy to get. Nicest armhole neckline curves that I've gotten out of a draft without having to manipulate it a little bit, just based on connecting the dots after you draft the setup for it. The shoulder dart also has a size check or a shape check, and you increase that shoulder dart for a larger cup size. And I just think that's very cool. The other thing is, this draft method has some unique measurements, which I found very cool. So for example, the full front measurement is taken from your top vertebra at center back, around your neck and down to your center waist. And then your center front is from the base of your neck to your waist. So you'll notice here I have this line that sticks up past the top of the draft. That would be half my back neckline. So when I measure for certain things, I'm starting up here versus, starting at the base of the neck here. I just thought that was kind of cool. I don't know if it's really any different than measuring from, the tip of your, the end of the shoulder at the side of your neck, including the back. I don't know, that just makes it a longer measurement, but I did find that very interesting. So the difference between your center front and the full back, starting at the center back neck and wrapping around to the waist, is what they're telling you to use for a bust dart intake. I mean, I got a pretty large difference because, I'm broad and I have a slightly wider neck than some people. I'm big up here. So my difference between my center front and my full front was initially 3¼ inches. And then there's a size check for that bust dart. So they tell you what the average bust dart should be for, an average cup size. And then they tell you for a larger cup size, the difference should be 2 to 2½ inches. And I had 3¼ inches. And my initial thought was, oh, I'll leave that 3¼ inches because I have a big bust dart normally. But then I thought to myself, well, some of that bust dart is being taken care of by the shoulder dart that I drafted up here. Right? So I decided to take the advice of the the little shape check along with the draft, and I moved my line up to 2½ inches. So I'm still using the larger recommended size for a full bust to 2½ inches, but I did make that little correction there. And I'm just kind of excited that, as I'm going along, there are things I can adjust for and, maybe get a better shape right out of the gate. Now, I have not finished this draft yet, but I will be sharing the complete draft, so if you want to follow along, you can. And again, I apologize that this book is not readily available, but, check your shelf. I think there are people who have this book. It's very unassuming looking. It just has a white cover. It's got a binding on it, and it may be right on your bookshelf. So check your bookshelf to see if you have it, especially if you have a lifetime's worth of drafting books and fitting books on your shelf. I got this book because one of my lovely subscribers reached out to me and asked me if I wanted her collection of drafting books because she wasn't going to be doing drafting anymore. So that's how I got my copy, and I am so excited that I did. Now, I just want to also show you here, beyond the draft, it shows you how to draft a sleeve, so I'm going to be excited to check that out. And the draft for the sleeve includes an elbow dart. So I'm very excited to draft a sleeve with an elbow dart. And then the fitting the muslin has a lot of good information in there. And one of the things that I think is kind of cool, and I'm going to use this next time I check the depth of my armhole is to check the depth of your armhole with your arms forward. And then you can see from your side how far down the base of the armhole is, so you can either bring it up or bring it down. Now the recommendation in this book is to have a 1/2 inch between the raw edge of the fabric and your armpit. I think that might be a little high for most people, but I am going to give that a try. And then there are different recommendations for smoothing wrinkles in the back. And then also looking at the sleeve and making adjustments for the sleeve. If you want to rotate those darts around and get rid of the shoulder dart in the front, there's information about that. There's also how to take your close-fitting slopers and then make them looser fitting. And you can make a variety of dress styles from your sloper. And I just really, I really like this book. There are adjustments even to make it a coat, and how to convert a dress sleeve into a coat or suit sleeve. And then there's how to make a 2-piece sleeve for a suit. So this has got a lot of really cool information in it, and I love the illustrations. I just want to show you here. When I was looking at how to take body measurements, you can definitely tell by the date of this, the printing. The model has a lovely slip skirt on, complete with lace, and the bra is very detailed here. I just thought that was very pretty. The illustrations with her little lace slip, I just thought that was very cool. So I'm really excited to be drafting in this book. Let me just give you another quick peek at what I have done so far. Okay, we've got I have the whole back neck, shoulder, armhole, and then I have the front neckline, shoulder, armhole, and there is a little bit of a different way to draw these armholes. Notice they're not ending the same at the base of the armhole here. This diagonal that was drawn here and then here are used to, so whatever drop you got from B to 15, you measured from 41 down to the base of the armhole over here. You get the same measurement, but because this is lower, this gets dropped. So you can see I have a lot of little numbers here, a lot of little dots, but I want to say they all go together very nicely to create these nice shapes. Notice, you can see I did not have to struggle to get these armholes. There is a little peak right there, but I think that's really, not a big deal. Like if I were to just come in here, I could just smooth this out ever so slightly right here, right? Just to make that a smooth curve. But I mean, that's really the only place in the neckline and armholes I had a little bit of a thing. I mentioned that the center back angles in for the shape of the small of your back. I made the assumption that after you create the A to 2 line for bust, and then you come down to your waist measurement and then your full hip measurement, I thought you would come down and create a regular straight rectangle, but you can see I crossed this line out because my assumption was incorrect. Just like you shifted the bottom of the center back over a little bit. So see, here it is. In the front, you actually pop that out 1.5 inches. So you're actually angling the center front out a little bit at the hem. And I think that's going to work out great for me because I have a tummy there. And I'm just going to be very interested to see how that works out. First time I've ever had a draft where the center front and center back are not, perpendicular to the horizontal lines on the pattern. So I'm very excited to try this. If you have any questions or comments about this or anything else in the bodice draft, please post those below and I will help you. If you're enjoying my content, consider liking and subscribing to my channel because it helps me grow. And I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day, and thanks for watching.